Welcome, everybody, to our session on e-waste frameworks, business models, and management. I'm Roland Weber, chemist from Germany, working mainly on persistent organic pollutants for the Stockholm Convention, which is also related to e-waste. And I'm one of the chair of the session. And
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Suzanne Karcher. I'm the co-chair of the chair, and I'm actually part of the SRI project. I'm the national coordinator of the e-waste project in South Africa, developing policies, norms, and standards. So I'm super excited that I could chair that session because I would have attended it anyway. So without further ado, we'd like to start. I will chair the first slot, and then Roland will take over from me for slot number 3. So we want to start out with a long-known and appreciated colleague of mine, Dea Veli. Dea has worked in EMPA, Switzerland, the organization, and more recently also EcoWorks. And Dea will tell us about informal e-waste management in India and introduce us to the amazing work of EcoWorks there in terms of the establishment of a co-working facility. Dea, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So let's start, and I start with this picture. Thinking of being in India in a chaotic, busy town with the air filled with spices and a honking noise in the background. That's the neighborhoods of Selampur, Mandoli, and Mustafabad, close to Delhi. And if you go down between these streets, you see it looks like this. That's a normal picture. You find a lot of workshops looking like this, where the sound of the honking is mixed with the sound of hammering for taking apart e-waste. This is a worker, and he's a daily laborer. They're like his boss, who is a Malik, so-called, the kind of bigger boss of aggregating e-waste, collecting it, selling it, dismantling it. And this is where we come in as EcoWork. We try to find a way, how can we create a safer and secure work environment for micro entrepreneurs such as these? We have rented a facility in an industrial area close to these neighborhoods of 23,000 square feet. And we have set up infrastructure. So this is like, the idea is based on a co-working space. So we create a work environment, and micro entrepreneurs can come and they can rent a work unit for the dismantling or for storing of e-waste. You can see in the green ones, that's the work units. And we provide some tools, we provide tables and business support services. For you to know a bit the setup, so here, these are the areas where the current micro entrepreneurs are dismantling e-waste, and this is where our facility is located. So we try to be as close as possible, yet there's a distance between the current hub and where we are, and that is one of the challenges that we face. But we are a compliant facility. That means we also have to be in an industrial area, and we cannot be in a residential area. So that's why it's further away, also in the state of Uttar Pradesh and not in the state of Delhi, because Delhi doesn't issue any e-waste license. So our main challenges so far in the last years that we faced is, one important thing is you need to have the team available. You need to have the local knowledge, the local team. You need to have the willingness and force and energy to do something like this. And luckily, we managed to have this great team. You need to have sufficient funding available. Finances is always a big question. How do you create these funds? Understanding the local market, understanding the network, what the people need, what the people want, how do you achieve it? The right facility, as I said before, it's not always easy to find the right spot, the right location. The right support also. I mean, here's a lot of knowledge around, and we need to connect with each other to find solutions and to implement them. And also to achieve compliance. So being legally compliant with the law, getting all the licenses and authorization has been a great challenge. But luckily, we did manage to get everything, and we have the facility. And just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had our opening days. So we did 4 days of open days. We invited stakeholders, especially also with a focus on micro entrepreneurs. So we had 160. We had a network of 160 micro entrepreneurs that we reached out, and out of them were 100 dismantlers, 30 e-waste kapadivalas, which are e-waste collectors, and 20 others. And I want to summarize a bit their feedback. Out of these 160 that we contacted, we sent messages, we visited, etc. Only 20 came in the end to visit the facility, and they gave us some feedback, what they think of it. And I collected or summarized them here in some persons. So we have, for example, Mr. Brashant, who is an aggregator, and he generally thinks he's very optimistic about the e-waste model. But he also is very conscious about the business privacy. So he wants to have his business secrets. He doesn't like it that the space is so open. It is nice, but he also wants to have his business secrecy. We have Mr. Tunite, who is a small e-waste entrepreneur. And he thinks, well, he's quite well within his network in Selampur, where he knows where everybody else is, where he knows where he can sell it to, where he gets the material. And he's rather reluctant coming to EcoWork because he feels more comfortable where he is now. And then we have, for example, Mr. Nassim, who is a very well representative of many others who are into a family business of e-waste. So over the generations, they have built up a huge network, often throughout India. So they have some cousins in other cities who gets the e-waste, they send it to Delhi, it gets dismantled, and they have built up a very solid network. And for them, EcoWork provides an opportunity for business development, but they also see it as a risk because now they have this stable network. So they need to have an incentive why they should come to EcoWork. And it's kind of this difficulty between finding new business opportunities and yet also taking that risk. And Mr. Ashur and Mr. Faisal, so they are involved in the business of e-waste, and they faced also troubles in the last year. They said it was a difficult year for them, so they see EcoWork as an opportunity also to restart their business and going into new opportunities. And we have, for example, Musail also, who is an aggregator and who really was enthusiastic about doing business with EcoWork, who thinks it's a great opportunity and he sees a lot of potential there. So basically, if we summarize that, out of the 160 that we contacted, if we take them in the beginning, so it's 40% that didn't really come, and then 50% they were generally supportive, but we don't think they really want to come. And then we have 8% that are supportive, and I think we need to leverage them a bit more. And then we could get them to test out the facility. And 3%, they're very supportive. If you look and only take the 21 people that came to the facility to see it, it's a bit more evenly distributed. So there's really a value in bringing them to the facility and discussing it with them to get the feedback and trying to integrate what they tell you. So we continue having challenges that we face, and that's also why I'm here to speak with you and learn from you, because there's a lot of knowledge around. So we need to still integrate into existing networks. We need to find ways how to connect with downstream players, how to connect with the micro entrepreneurs, and to create this bridge that we intend to do to bridge the gap between the informal and formal sector. We need to address the issue of business secrecy because that has been mentioned several times. And also there will be the question of how do we ensure that rules and requirements within our facilities are adhered to, and there is no like going around certain rules. We need to make sure we have sufficient funding for running the facility over the first years until we can become self-sustaining. And we are looking for partnerships and collaboration to find new incentives, that we can leverage the micro entrepreneurs, or incentives for the micro entrepreneurs to come to our facility. And also then there are questions like, what do we do with the problematic waste? Who pays for it? How do we dispose it in a correct way? like very specifically for local solutions. So there's a lot of questions, and I know there's a lot of knowledge in this room, so I'm very happy to speak to you to find ways of how can we bring the solutions to the ground and implement them. So with that, I thank you for being here, and I thank also very much our partners, especially EMPA and REPIC, who support the project a lot. Thanks.
Thank you so very much for this very enlightening presentation. We will have later time for questions answered. However, to keep things a bit more interactive, I'll allow for 1 or 2 questions. So it's a case of first come, first serve. If anyone, yes, Paul.
Thank you so much. I've heard a lot about the EcoWork facility. I just wanted to ask, I see you did the questionnaire, you know, you kind of questioned the informal sector once the facility was up and running. How much engagement did you do before in kind of conceptualizing the facility itself? Yeah, basically.
So we did that quite extensively. So we worked together with a social organization also to have this participatory design approach, where we actually took in the beginning we rented a facility, for example, we took 20 dismantlers there from these neighborhoods and asked them, if you design a facility, how would you design it? So gave them some chalk, some tape, and they went on the ground and built and showed what they want to have. And that's how we build up the business model. Then we continued to visit them, especially like in the last 6 months, we have 2 people, they just do this. They go out to the communities and speak with them, understanding what and how could the incentives be put into place that they will move, because it requires a lot of change from their daily lives to come to the EcoWork facility.
Yes, please, Hassan.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Hossam Allam from Sidari. My question, now you are providing them with this shared workspace. Does this also will keep them informal? Or you are planning, let's say there's an incentive for them to be at this working space to be formal?
I mean, that's exactly what we try to do to bridge this gap. So while EcoWork is the formal, like the formal bone, like the environment, they still at the moment are informal, and we want to have the solution that works in this way. Ideally, we want to support them in the long term also to get registered, and it would be a vision in the long term that at some point EcoWork would be more kind of an incubator where they move then out and have their own formal registered business set up, and yeah, being a registered business. But EcoWork for now, it should also be possible to run with informal micro entrepreneurs within a formal setup and bridging that gap.
Thank you very much. As I say, later, still some time to ask those questions. So please, if it's a burning one, write it down and we can still address it later. It's my pleasure to introduce the next presenter, Nana Yaconado. We had obviously as chairs to go through all the slides. And quite honestly, seeing those slides for the first time, I was very excited. I thought, wow, you know, what you're doing in terms of waste beneficiation is definitely a cut above the rest compared to South Africa. So I hope you are equally excited to see what Electro-Recycling Ghana is doing regarding waste beneficiation. Thank you very much. Can I please have the speaker?
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Adongo, Innovations Manager for Electro-Recycling Ghana. My CEO, Nana Kunedu, has told me to speak in his place. Yeah, okay. So Electro-Recycling Ghana is a certified e-waste company. Co-founders are Nanaya Kunedu and Hans Werner. And Hans Werner has been in the recycling industry in Germany, so he has a lot of technical expertise. So he and Nanaya Kunedu came together to form the company. One of the main problems we had is that we saw that in West Africa, over 100 million people do not have the financial strength or power to have access to new electronic devices. So that's when they try to find a way to bridge the gap. How can they solve the problem of getting these people access to these devices whilst also trying to deliver on circular economy? And with the normal problems that we all face through harmful e-waste recycling, which is the energy consumption, which is when people use it for incineration, and the environmental impacts it has, the health concerns, and some people also didn't know where to send their devices in Ghana. You know, they have laptops and they want to find a sustainable way to recycle them, but they also have problems of how their data is being handled. So we came together to try to find solutions to all these problems. So one of the main ways we did it was through the 3 R's, you know, reduce, reuse, and recycle. But our main thing is to make sure recycling is what we do last. That's to dismantle them, turn them into their various fractions, metals, plastics here. We decided to try and extend the lifespan. So our main priority is always reuse. So we do that through refurbishment, we do that through repairs, and we do that through repurposing. So when it has reached the end of its lifespan and it can no longer be repaired, reused, or repurposed, that's where we move on to dismantling. So this is a typical thing in Ghana. You know, they have a lot of skillful labor. People are very experienced with their hands. They have a lot of talents there. So this is one of our workers who was repairing the televisions for reuse. And anytime a device comes to our warehouse, the main thing is we test them first. If we test them and they are good, we send them back into the market. If we test them and there are some problems, but they can be repaired, we repair them. If it needs refurbishment, we refurbish them, update the software, update everything to make sure it's brand new, looks brand new, or it's even in line with the current models. And this is a typical repurposing. You know, we get monitors from Germany. Some we also source them in Ghana. The monitors are still good. So then we thought that, okay, we can reuse this. We have to think of a way. So we dismantle them. We take out the LCD screens. We remove the LCD bulbs, change it to LED, which reduces the power consumption. And then we add motherboards and speakers, and we get a brand new television for those in Ghana who cannot afford brand new. So a brand new television like this goes for about 600 Ghana cedis, but because they are repurposed, the sourcing of materials is cheaper, although they are good. So we sell it for about 200 cedis. So it's about a fraction of its original price. So a lot of people are able to afford them. So these are the monitors. This is the process in which it goes through. And this is a typical case. Like I said, the affordability is quite difficult in Ghana. So this is a place in the rural areas where we send the televisions. You could see they could all gather around and we were very impressed. And one of the main reasons we use television is, as we always say, it's a life-changing product. It informs, it educates, and it entertains. So through the television, people are able to get connected to the world around them. And we repurpose lithium-ion batteries also. You know, some people use scooters in Europe here, 2-3 years, and then they change it, but its battery still has a long lifespan, 8 to 7 years more. So we repurpose the batteries to use it to make power generators for those in the rural areas with limited access to electricity. With this, they are able to power the televisions, which they buy from us also. And we also use it for e-mobility. We change bikes which use fossil fuel to the source of electric power. And at the end, when we cannot repurpose, we cannot reuse or refurbish, then we do the manual dismantling and segregation. And we also try to process some of the cables when they come through. We use cable shredders and cable cutting machines. It's a very capital intensive, but we went through it. And these are the ladies, and yeah. And you know, once we dismantle the monitors or some of the things, it reached a point we had stockpiled a lot of the plastics because we take out the screens from the monitors, but the plastics were there. So luckily SRI came in with GIZ, and then they came to train us. It was about 9 months training because it was tons of e-waste thermoplastics. So then they showed us how to differentiate them, ABS, HIPS, what is hazardous, which contains the BFR. So then we are then able to shred them now. We are trying to move on to the next stage, which is to reuse them to make the housing for our television. So when an electronic comes in, we try to make sure about 90% of it is reused to close the loop. Yeah, so this is our team. And thank you. If you have any further questions, I think I'll be ready to answer them.
So I think this is amazing. That really takes repurposing to the next level for me. So congratulations. Again, 1 or 2 questions. Yes, please, Frederick.
Yeah, thank you. Really nice presentation. I just have 1 or 2 questions actually. Are repurposed products considered new products? Do you have any kind of certification or standards to classify these products as new? What is the implication when it's repurposed in this way? And are you able to ship these repurposed products outside the borders of Ghana, maybe using AFCTA, something like this?
First, we have the certification from Standard Board. Once we repurpose them to new televisions, we invited the Standard Board to come in. So they went and they did a test and we are certified. And with our box, I don't know if you see the box, we put a sign there for them to know that the screen is from a recycled material. So they are aware. And they are very happy about it because it also inspires them. It makes them know that, okay, if I have a monitor at home, instead of me to send it for incineration or for it to be destroyed, they can bring it to ELG and the monitor can be reused. Some of them also even think and go ahead to say, okay, I have this electronic at home. ELG has been able to do something with it. Why don't I also think and also use it to do something else? So with your point, it was very interesting. And even with GIZ, we trained about 150 technicians on environmentally sound disposal of e-waste. So it has reached a point where we have a take-back system, which is credit-wise. So the technicians bring some of the e-waste to us, and then they get a credit, and then they come and take some of the repurposed televisions as a huge discount. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hassan, final question.
Thank you for this interesting presentation.
Yeah.
My question, when you receive the equipment from Germany,
Yeah.
do you receive it for free or do you pay for it or do you get fund for it?
Yeah, I see you wants to get in here.
Yes, actually, I'm Nanael Knedu, but I'm more nervous than him. So thank you, Jeff, for saving me. Yes, actually, we work with a German company, Elrec, which is head by my partner, Hans Werner. So those parts that we use for repurposing, they are pre-sorted in Germany, tested, and the rest we do it in Ghana.
I mean the cost free?
The
cost, do you receive it for free? Or you pay for it, or they give you money to receive it?
Actually, nothing is for free. You know, we pay something for it. We pay also, of course, transportation, also some levy in Ghana. Yeah, so it's not for free.
Thank you.
So just my advice: take it for free after that because they get the APR fees for it. So you should take it from them for free. No.
Right. Exactly. Money makes the world go round, and it is not a difference when it comes to the management of e-waste. And who can tell us a lot about the financing of e-waste collection and recycling in the low and middle income countries is my colleague Andreas Mannert from the Öko Institute. Andreas, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Waiting for my slide. Do I have to do anything? Okay. Right. Okay, so this is about e-waste compensation. Actually, a topic we addressed in Econ project. It stands for e-waste compensation as an international financing mechanism in Nigeria. It's a project that is over now. It was financed by the Prevent Waste Alliance and the German Developing Corporation, and we implemented together with a variety of partners you see here in the lower part, most of them from Nigeria. So it's basically a project we implemented in Nigeria, and one outcome is a short paper and 11 principles we suggest for the concept of e-waste compensation. What is e-waste compensation? The word already tells you it comes from, something like greenhouse gas emission compensation. So what you can't reduce and avoid, there is a compensation idea from greenhouse gases, which is expanded to waste, to plastics, and now also to e-waste. It's already existing for mobile phones, and it's now expanded to further types. And it basically means that a buyer compensates according to the volume he buys, and the client pays a fee to a service provider who uses this fee to collect and soundly manage somehow an equivalent amount. And this, as said, is implemented for phones, is expanded to laptops, batteries, screens. And one objective of this project was to test the expansion to screens and also to develop principles together with the stakeholders in Nigeria, what boundary conditions must be met to be eligible as a compensation. So e-waste compensation is two objectives, basically. First of all, the client, those who pay, they want something, of course. They want a green reputation. This is clear. But secondly, of course, it must improve e-waste management. What does improving mean? This so far has not been defined. And this was part of our job as well. Our objective of this project, discuss with all players in the chain and with key stakeholders in Nigeria in that case, what's the boundary between a scam, greenwashing, and sound e-waste compensation. And this is what we come out, 11 principles. So we had a lot of interaction with stakeholders and developed these 11 principles. They're not carved in stone. They're first suggestion for discussion. So if you want to move on with e-waste compensation, this is what we recommend to consider, but not claiming that this is the end of the discussion. The first one, you need a compensation ratio. So each financial contribution should somehow match either to here on a product level, 1-to-1. If you compensate, for example, one computer, another computer must be compensated, or a mobile phone. Secondly, you can also do it weight-based. A certain ton of a product category, manage a certain ton, or also based on pollution equivalence. Very basic, but I think the first principle to observe. 1-to-1 is at the moment the only way which we observed onto the market, but we came across a situation where we thought, okay, the other methods might make sense too. To go deeper into this, I have a link here because this will become very technical, overstretching today's session. A country selection. In what countries should it be eligible to do e-waste compensation? Of course, probably not in Switzerland. But of course, there are a number of countries where it could be discussed. We don't have a list of countries and refrain from doing so, but I think it should be low and middle income countries and a country where own e-waste management systems, including financing mechanisms, are either non-existent or still in a very rudimentary state. Otherwise, from our perspective, it would not make sense to come in with a system doubling up such existing systems. Local sourcing. We all know the project of e-waste trade. So e-waste compensation is aimed at management waste from local consumption in the countries where the collection takes place. And it should by no means stipulate imports of e-waste to such countries. So the operators of compensation schemes shall take convincing measures to ensure that they do not directly or indirectly attract such trade. How to do this? This is linked to the principle number 10, I'll come to later, due diligence. So they have to do a certain process to ensure or to make sure they rule out indirect effects. Additionality. E-waste managed through compensation mechanism shall come from a waste stream that would, without this compensation, not be managed. We heard in Ghana, where most people would think, okay, it's still not a well-developed e-waste system. There is developed e-waste system. So such financing should not lead, to claim that an e-waste volume, this is managed anyway properly, is sold again to a compensating entity. Double counting should be avoided. Focus on devices beyond repair. So it's very much focused at the moment on recycling. We don't rule out reuse and repair, but it should not cannibalize this market. So not recycle devices that could be repaired and refurbished for obvious reasons. This is probably very specific to Nigeria because the waste stream is very low quality because there's so many repair shops who already pick out the devices that can be repaired. So e-waste compensation, in our opinion, should also consider repair, but it should not cannibalize repair, refurbishing, and reuse. When it comes to management of these e-waste types, the fractions, the components, it's important to consider the waste hierarchy. Prevention and reuse, of course. Reuse is the highest priority. Second one would be recycling. What cannot be recycled? Energy recovery only under controlled conditions. And the last resort is hazardous waste disposal. So not going for energy recovery concepts without considering higher hierarchies. High quality management, obvious, but high quality is important. It's not a double standard. So all steps from collection over dismantling to recycling shall follow high standards. And this includes mitigation of health and safety risks to workers, and also application of best practices for handling, storage, recycling in all other management steps, also downstream processes, so off-takers of these fractions. Local value addition. Some processes can't be done locally, but it should be made efforts to identify as far as possible local management options and do them locally. So export to other countries should only ban for fractions which you cannot do locally. Cooperation with local initiatives, it's not a standalone. It should enrich the local development of e-waste processes. So this should not be standalone. They should interlink with local processes, policy processes, to develop e-waste systems. Number 10 is due diligence. Due diligence, make sure there are no indirect side effects. For example, indirect attraction of import of e-waste for compensation, for example. So due diligence follows a certain process, and this is a must-do according to our list of principles. And the last one is, of course, transparency and documentation, and also filing these documents for external audits, and particularly also for the fractions which are passed on, hazardous fractions, to off-takers. Also, there must be due diligence that this must be treated properly. These are the 11 principles we suggest for e-waste compensation. So if e-waste compensation is considered a financing mechanism to be taken further, we suggest starting a debate how to continue with these 11 principles. There might be 12, there might be 9. They're open to discussion, but this is an input from the Econ project on this. I hope I'm still in time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think they sound very, very good building blocks, definitely to me. So any questions, one or two? Anyone for Andreas? Otherwise, we're moving on. Not a problem. Everyone is very happy with what you presented. Thank you. So our next speaker is Lydia Azua from the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, better known as MESTI from Ghana. And she will actually show us the legal authority perspective, enhancing capacities of local authorities, the role of strengthening local authorities for sound e-waste management. That is something that we also identify as a crucial strategy to give municipalities more power. So thank you. I'm looking forward to hear from you and learn from you, Lydia.
Thank you. So I'm sharing with you some insights on the projects we've implemented with what we call the Metropolitan Municipal and District Assemblies in Ghana. And the partners for the project implementation, as you can see from the screen, we've been working with the German corporation GIZ. We have MESTI, the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development, because they have oversight over the MMDAs, the Head of Local Government Service Secretariats. We have Mountain Research and Oko Institute as well, always providing technical support. So in terms of the outline, the objective, the structure of the local government system that we have, the approach we use for the workshop, some project outcomes, the successes, and then we look at the conclusion. So in terms of the objective, why did we have to engage the municipal assemblies? So in Ghana, the informal scrap operators operate within local assemblies. Ghana has put out information to the fact that the collection rates, the efficiency system with which the scrap collectors perform their work is so much so that we have to provide the systems and the structures for them to continue and even better the approach that they use. And that's how come we had to train the local government authorities. Then also EPA does regulation of the operations of the informal scrap dealers. But in addition, the local authorities at the local level also have a role to play in terms of the management of the local jurisdiction. Then we also had to build their capacity so that they can be able to manage e-waste sustainably within their localities. And that's why the program came on. So the structure for the decentralization in Ghana looks like this. We have at the top central government. Then we have what we call the Ministry of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development at the national level. We have the regional coordinating councils at the regional level. Then we have the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. So right now, we have 16 regional coordinating councils at the regional level. We have metropolitan, we have about 6 metropolitan assemblies. The municipal assemblies are about 109, and then we have 145 district assemblies. So the types or the approaches of training that we held with them, basically about 5 types. The type 1 was for the ministries, the agencies, the regional health, regional environmental health officers. So like I mentioned, at the regional level, we have an entity that supervises the metropolitan and district assembly. So the regional environmental health officers also had to be trained. Then we had the political heads of selected MMDAs that also had to be trained because they needed to bring a buy-in, get a buy-in into what was being done with the assemblies. Then we had a type 3 looking at the environmental health, the planners, and then the waste management officers in the selected MMDAs. So type 4, we had 1 officer from each assembly brought together to help finalize the guideline that had been prepared. And then the type 5, we created the platform. We created the platform for the launch of the guideline. So in terms of the key outcomes that we had, or the successes from the program we did with the assemblies, the first thing has to do with the development of a guidelines for managing e-waste and scrapyard in the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. So the guideline talks about, among other things, requirements for registration of collectors. So what are the requirements that you should meet before you are registered as a collector? It also provides information on standards that scrap collectors must meet. Then prohibited activities at the scrapyard, what should be done, what should not be done. Then the requirements for materials management, registration of scrapyards, and then the requirements for treatment facilities. So as we speak today, about 54 MMDAs in 10 regions have been trained on sustainable e-waste management. Some MMDAs have started including the guidelines in their bylaws. So the bylaws are the local laws that are passed at the locality to manage the environment and all other sectors. Then we have some MMDAs also starting to map out scrapyards within their locality so that they can be able to better manage them. So by way of conclusion, the project received a lot of support from government, and we rightly mentioned at the national level, you have as many as 3 institutions that are supporting. Then the use of the top, bottom, and then bottom up approach was also very insightful because it enabled us to, number 1, create ownership, carry people along. And then the initiative also promoted the PPP model. That is the public-private partnership model. And then some MDAs are also already taking steps to manage e-waste in an environmentally sound manner within their jurisdictions. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful. Before we conclude the first slot, I give you an opportunity while all the presenters are still there. Any other questions to any of the presenters? Aisha, please.
This is to Lydia. I just wanted to ask about the different types of training. How did you, is it different in each type, or is there a difference in curriculum, and how did you develop that to capacitate the local actors? Yeah.
Thank you. We had a Mountain Research. I indicated that they are one of the partners that we are working with. So they put together the curriculum working with OCO Institute, right, to bring the themes that will be trained on, that the MMDAs will be trained on at each level. But there were some common themes that ran through the presentations, because you need to be able to give them the background, the legal framework within which Ghana is operating and managing e-waste, the negative implications of if we are not managing e-waste properly. Yeah. So there are certain themes that cuts across, but for the ones, for instance, the training for the political heads, because we are looking for their buy-in, we also needed to share with them experiences from other countries for them to know how it's done so that they can give us the buy-in. But so to answer your question, there are commonalities amongst all the types, but depending on the target group, if we'll have to go a bit deeper, we do that. Thank you.
Wonderful. We are, yeah, any other? We are quite good on time. I'm super happy about that.
Zoom, yeah, then you can read.
Please.
Is there a method to determine the monetary value of the compensation fee, and how is the sound disposal documented?
To you, Andreas.
I think so, yes. Actually, this would go to Closing the Loop, which was our compensation partner here. We've done mathematics on compensation as screen, compensation at TV, which was under how we developed it, roughly €5 per piece, large TV. Honestly, this is very high at the moment, but there is, of course, a reduction in price when things are established. So it's, of course, a market dynamics. You have costs and you have the willingness to pay. So these operators have to find a balance where it is. It's certainly higher than EPR fees here in Europe, simply because volumes are low, systems are complex, local solutions have been identified, probably shipment is involved, notification is involved. So it's certainly higher than an e-waste EPR fee. But I think €5 per piece, which is our mathematics, is at the moment in Nigeria reality, but with the aim to reduce it when economy of scales come in.
Thank you very much. Okay, this concludes my chair job. And I hand over to my colleague Roland, who will take you to the second slot of the session. Thank you.
Okay, so we exchange the presenters. So you can sit down on the warm chairs here, and you can sit down on those warm chairs there. And I am looking for the first presenter, which is Gabriela Sukohanai. Yeah, super. Okay, good. Yeah. And she's also our first presenter. She's from the University of Cuenca from Ecuador, and she will talk about sustainable circular economy assessment framework for e-waste treatment plant in developing countries, case study of Cuenca in Ecuador. I give you the...
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Thank you so much. And let's start to the brief context about the Ecuador and the waste management. And well, I present that Ecuador is a little country in the Latin America, and since 2018 we developed or tried to support the or integrate the environmental concerns in our framework. And currently, we have the interest legal framework, and we have the law of the circular economy that try to support and promote this practice in different levels and different sectors. Also, we have in 2022, with support the UNIDO project, we implement the EPR of specific e-waste and began on the the countries in the region have the specific law. Of course, this is a really good opportunity to improve the system of the waste management. But however, I say the e-waste in Ecuador is really new. We don't have the really technical capacities, and now we have the disassembly and salt and sport for the other countries. And the capacities of technical and formal system is really limited. We have only 5 companies that have the permissions that necessary for management this waste. And it's important mention has the other countries in the region, we have the really important informal sector. It's not related with the e-waste right now, but it's a really important actor when we're talking about the e-waste management in general. Okay, and has a circular economy practice, the e-waste management in Ecuador represents a great opportunity because we have the good place for implement the second market place. And of course, we have the capacities for, because it's a cultural practice, the repair the different device is a good for implement the circular economy strategies. But of course, when talking about this sustainable of the circular economy, we need the really holistic approach that considers different aspects, social aspect, economy aspect, of course, environmental aspect. And the social part is a really tricky, a really strong a challenge for development the different framework when we assess the social, the sustainable part. And the question is how? How should we assess the sustainable circular economy in these activities? We have the previous experience with the micro and small enterprise and try to provide the set. It's a different objective, but it's the good idea for that because they provide the support and metrics to take in account the some many aspects about the sustainability, but no link in between. But of course, you can provide the picture how the enterprise um, development different things about the different aspect of sustainability. The layers of this appliance is we need the simple framework to measure for the companies that need really fast and they really need to meet the different requirements of legal. And the other thing is the results of this framework need really easy and understandable for all the stakeholders. And we designed the different visualization tools for that. But there's the learnings about that. And inspiring here and taking as a reference the plan, the pilot plan in Cuenca, Ecuador, we development this sustainable, theoretical sustainable framework. This is a plan, is a pilot, is a good example for cooperation, the Switzerland plan, the local government, and the academia. It's a pilot, but we have some goals. For example, we expect the management around the 80 tons per year is a pilot. And we try to integrate the different activities in the circular economy in here. And of course, we try to integrate the informal sector and try in their capacities. And yeah, we have the 4 points really important for development this framework. The first is the sustainability. We need to consider 3 aspects, economic and social and environmental. For this, we carry out the really deep literature review and find the huge amount on the indicators. Of course, with you don't pretend the companies and the facility can use around the 300 indicators. And we start the validation process with the stakeholders involved in the value chain and the local decision makers. And the process is continuing now, but try to prioritize the indicators for the facilities is very fast to talking about the sustainability. And other important things that can be help us to prioritize the indicators is the legal completeness. The intention here is the framework have the two capacities. The first to talking about the sustainability of these facilities, and the other thing is the compete with legal requirements, because we avoid the duplicate efforts for the different things and encouraging the managers to use this type of the tools. The other thing is applicability. Of course, we take a reference for that, a pilot. The intention is provide the general framework that can be adapted in different contexts and is a simple, for example, you have the measure for salary, only you need adapted the other realities in Ecuador is different. And the final, the intention is the results of the sustainable framework provide the really simple and understandable results for decision makers in the management and the policy makers can be improved and provide the different point of view about the sustainability in this type of the plans. And yeah, that is all. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gabriela, for this clear and good presentation. Do we have question? If not, my question to you is, do you have contact to other countries in the region where you are doing the exchange and see how far they are? And yeah.
Yeah, we have different good experience. For example, in Colombia, it's the large experience about that. It's a partner to us for development this, and we try to prove this framework in the Lito. Lito is a company have the strong value chain and they know the different stakeholders and try to provide and obtain the prioritization indicators, because the intention is they provide the simple framework with the little or less indicators. Right?
Okay, yeah, thanks, very good. Yeah, then we can come to our second presentation. This is Mrs. Gada Mogni. She's from the Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region, Sedare, in Egypt. And she will talk about sustainable recycling industry's impacts on Egypt. Yeah, so please, floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'll start with a little entertainment. I don't know if it will work from here. I guess I have. Yeah, can you make it bigger? Center for Environment and Development for the Arab region in Europe, CIDARI, is the national implementing organization for the sustainable recycling industries, or as we call it here, SRI, as in short.
Program is about helping other countries make favorable framework conditions for the recycling of electronic waste, mainly in Ghana, Egypt, South Africa, Colombia, and Peru.
SRI is being implemented over 5 countries. However, in Egypt, it has a tremendous impact. When we first started SRI in 2015, there was only 1 recycler. Now we have 19 recyclers.
This project provides technical assistance for the various pillars of the system, such as the legislative and the standards part that need to be in place for e-waste to be properly recycled.
المخلفات الإلكترونية طبعا زي ما الجميع يعرف إن فيها ذهب وفضة ومعادن ثمينة، نحاس، ازاز، بلاستيك. كل الحاجات دي لو تم استرجاعها بشكل علمي مظبوط هتبقى عائد اقتصادي كبير جدا للدولة.
لو ما عملناش تخلص آمن للأجهزة ديت هتبقى عبء على البيئة وهتبقى عبء على المواطن وعلى صحته.
لازم المخلفات الإلكترونية ديت تروح لحد بيفهم يتعامل معاها ازاي، بحيث انه يعيد تدويرها بطريقه سليمه ويتخلص من الجزء الخطر دوت بطريقه سليمه بيئيا ما تاثرش على صحه الانسان.
DSS is a global consulting company with the goal to save lives and creating a more sustainable future. Within DSS, we have more than 20 years of experiences with e-waste management projects.
The SHRI project has been supporting the following: the development of an e-waste policy and a legal framework for the application of an Egyptian legislation on e-waste to the decision-making process, the legal framework, and the governance of the e-waste system in Switzerland by organizing study tours and meeting with the competent Swiss authorities and representatives of the Swiss compliance systems.
قدرنا ننجح في تدريب العديد من الشركات الناشئة، وقدرنا ندخل شركات كتيرة من الاقتصاد الغير رسمي للاقتصاد الرسمي ومكملين.
احنا بنكولكت الماتيريالز بتاعتنا من الشركات الانترناشونال والمالتي ناشونالز اللي في مصر. اذا كان قابل لاعاده التدوير فاحنا بنستخدمه في اعاده التدوير، وفي حاجات بتبقى غير قابله لاعاده التدوير دي بنعمل لها اعدام بالطرق البيئيه.
إعادة التدوير بتخلق 10 أضعاف فرص العمل عن الحرق أو الدفن. يعني طبعا حرق واحد فقط لا غير بيحرق الحاجة، أو واحد بيدفن. لكن أنا لو بعمل بقى فرز وتفكيك واستخراج معادن، دي 10 أضعاف فرص العمل.
We hope that these efforts could continue because it will greatly benefit the industry on the practical, on the ground level. After laying the foundations, the effect and the impact of this industry will greatly benefit the country in its resources, efficiency in making more, generating income and job opportunities for a lot of stakeholders and players in this field of e-waste recycling management. Do you still need my presentation? I think I said it all. Anyways, now let me give you a little brief and history of e-waste in Egypt before I tell you the impact of SHRI. And because in Egypt, the trip to safe recycling started actually in 2009 with the first e-waste forum that was held in Cairo, and that reflected the needs for enhancing Egypt's policies and regulations on e-waste to reach an optimal economic potential. Egypt's involvement actually and speed indulgence in digital transformation was going in parallel with the increase and growing population that's beyond 100 million, I think you all know. And that also provided the need and opportunity to establish an e-waste recycling industry with, you know what the digitalization means, a lot of end-of-life e-waste. Sorry. This is really fast. Huh? How can I go back? Okay. Okay, now I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the SHRI project was launched. This is the timeline. It was launched by the State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, SECO. I think everybody knows this piece of information, in 2013. And it targeted e-waste management in Egypt. It conducted its first e-waste assessment in 2011 to identify the country needs, and continued with another study in 2014 to identify the precious material available in the e-waste in Egypt. This material was actually available on historical e-waste through this assessment, and it laid the foundation and the basis for the SHRI project to start in 2015. Before the SHRI project started its activities, actually, the SHRI project is built on a number of pillars, and that's policy and legalities, the normative and conformity, business and partnership, capacity building, and hazardous fractions. SHRI was smart because before it started its activities with a lot of baseline assessments that addressed all the possible issues and that could affect the operation. It mapped the stakeholders, whether informal or formal, the factors, the components that results from the e-waste recycling, whether there's a legal framework and financial mechanisms or not. Let me take you quickly through the, I know through the components that I mentioned, are the pillars of SHRI. Under the policy component, SHRI project established or supported in the establishment of an e-waste recycling industry in Egypt through this setting up the rules for certifying and accrediting formal recyclers. But that did not SHRI also incentivized the informal sector by limiting governmental equipment tendering to formal accredited recyclers. She also identified the need to establish policies and regulations to govern the industry, which is a fact we cannot do without. But we did that, or SHRI did that, through the technical support to the executive regulations that was the result of the new waste management law established in 2020. And actually, the executive regulations was able to define e-waste as hazardous with special conditions, which supported a lot of the operations, especially for the informal sector and the formal sector. Of course, it lowered the cost and gave them an edge to the informal sector. All this was also achievable through establishing guidelines, legal guidelines first, to set out the rules and regulations and policies. And it was supported by technical guidelines that really specified handling e-waste from the very point of start of collection. Also, on the policy front, of course, as we all know, financing the e-waste recycling system or ecosystem is crucial for a successful system, for any successful system, management system. And SHRI provided that through the support of developing the EPR scheme as a first stage to implementation of EPR that we're currently working with all concerned ministries. Of course, to continue a successful operational management system, you need careful monitoring and evaluation and continuous evaluation of the recyclers. That's very necessary, as we all know. So SHRI did that through achieving and developing an auditing system based on international standards, and went further to build the capacity through training of trainers on the developed new auditing system, and also supporting the Ministry of Environment in developing a centralized auditing system. Is it hot or is it me? On the business and partnership front, SHRI supported formalizing the informal sector through incubating creative ideas, and SHRI helped in establishing their businesses in the field of e-waste. In parallel, SHRI also provided technical assistance to the existing recyclers to develop and improve their operations, and based on a baseline assessment of their needs and requests. One of the most famous issues in all our work is integrating the informal into the formal sector. And we address this through the establishment of a non-governmental organization to serve as a platform for the recyclers, whether formal or informal, to present their needs, challenges, and communicate actually between both sectors, formal and informal. Capacity building. Capacity building was one of the most important, I think, in all projects. You need, once you lay the rules and policies and put a system, you need to develop capacity and awareness. And actually SHRI addressed. Okay, no, I'm going fine. I'll finish in 2 minutes. It didn't fall short through all components, actually, through the implementation of the project that addressed all stakeholders, whether it's inspectors, auditors, recyclers, governmental officials, and the capacity building actually took all forms. It was through lectures, workshops, train of trainers. However, what proved an essential pillar in knowledge and experience transfer was field trips and study tours, because I think these were eye-openers, whether to recyclers or policy and decision makers. On the hazardous, and actually, I just want to add something that Shri did not stop at capacity building through workshops and study tours, but actually we developed an e-waste management curriculum that addressed managerial personnel and technical personnel, and it's actually now currently being introduced to technical and vocational schools to enhance education in the country. On the hazardous fraction front, the impact, of course, as we all know, of hazardous fraction resulting from e-waste is necessary to be addressed. And Shri looked at it as an opportunity, proven through an opportunity study, to be the basis of a feasibility study that will encourage investors to work in the e-waste management sector. Last but not least, and I'm still in time, as in a nutshell, I think the Shri project has not only impacted positively Egypt, but it has successfully established a platform that brought 5 ministries on the same table, international organizations and projects. And I have to say that it would not have been possible if the Egyptian government were not committed to have a really sound e-waste management sector. And with this, I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, for this good presentation and excellent film. We have time for a question, direct, and if not, we come to the last presentation. And this is also about, let's say, managing the waste. The last presenter is Dr. Tobias Schleicher from Öko-Institute Germany. He will talk about the evaluation of the suitability of the Brugge cement kiln of Savannah Diamond Ltd Ghana for co-processing of TDF and V plastic waste. Maybe you can start to explain what is TDF.
Exactly. So thank you very much. This presentation will be given by myself, but the work behind is teamwork. So we have Selina from the Factory Inspectorate Department Ghana here with us. EPA, sorry. We have also Letitia from Ghana CPC with us in the SRI team. We have Ed with us, who was part of the study, and of course Samson. I always call you my boss in the SRI project. So it's a joint work, and we just decided that I pitch it in the end. TDF means tired derived fuels. So it's a fuel that is derived from tires by shredding, and then actually use it as an alternative fuel. That's the other abbreviation that we should think of. Alternate fuel, like AF, or alternative fuels is the other abbreviation. Okay, what did we do so far? And I will go through 4 points now in the upcoming minutes. We have the introduction, and actually we made, as I mentioned, actually I wanted to show this slide when I mentioned all of you. The joint activity, actually, we did a study, first a pre-assessment study if the cement kiln in Bupe in Ghana is suitable to do co-processing. And I will explain in a minute what co-processing is in the end. And you see here the partners that I mentioned already. The cement kiln is it used to be the only cement kiln in Ghana because we do not have limestone in West Africa. Now another one has reopened actually. So we do not have so many cement facilities in Ghana as we do have in Switzerland, for example, because the Alps are kind of limestone, in German Kalk. So you see cement production everywhere. That's not the case in Ghana. There's just this single one, and you see the pictures here where the audit was, or the assessment was done in 2021, even within the COVID times. Also, I want to mention that Mr. Babu, who is the manager of this facility in Ghana, is online, joining right now. So if we have questions to him, I think we can also reach out to him. This was the result, a study by the team. when it comes to the technical, how can I turn it to the technical specifications and so on, we had Mr. Edwe Hamme with us from Alternate Resource Partners from the Netherlands, who is kind of Mr. Co-processing in the world, I'd say, because, yeah, Ed, I think you started in the 80s or 90s with co-processing in the US and all over the world, so great to have you here. And the conclusion that we had is if the company, Savannah Diamond, realizes some necessary investments, and we talk about that investments in a minute, co-processing of waste tires is possible there. But there are some prerequisites, there are some necessary steps to be taken, and we talk about them in a minute. What is the scope of co-processing? We do not or we did not have a look into extraction of limestone and crushing and so on, and also not in the cement production itself, the grinding of clinker, but only clinker production. So the calcination of the raw meal into within the rotary kiln, and to do so, we need a lot of energy. This is why cement kilns, yeah, are actually very, very CO2 intensive. But we have a chance to lower the CO2 emissions there, and you will see how. Co-processing, I already mentioned it, it is the use of waste materials in resource-intensive industrial processes, and here it is such as cement, here in this case, but we also see this in others. We discussed it yesterday, Ed, that also steel plants could apply for that. So it's not limited actually to the cement industry. And then that's the most important part, instead of fuels and natural resources. So what we actually had a look into is how much coal could we substitute with, in this case, shredded tires. And e-waste, sure, the we plastics as well. But we started with the tires actually. And is actually a main alternative to improve the environmental and the ecological footprint of industry itself. This is really important. You see the whole process there, and we will not go into detail, but you see, and what we wrote there in red is that the temperature profile and the residence time of in this case, the tire-derived fuels is key. So you see here in number 2, you see the rotary kiln, and there are 2 possibilities actually to get alternative fuel in there, and you have to make sure that it's at the right temperature and the right residence time. That is the most important part in the process. We'll not go into too many details. Why are we doing it? It was mentioned already, to save greenhouse gas emissions. Here, this would be waste incineration. This is a world where we take the rubber from the tires and just put it in a waste incinerator, and of course we have greenhouse gas emissions. At the same time, in many countries we have cement manufacturing, and you see also the cement plant has a lot of cement manufacture, a lot of CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. If you do co-processing, sorry about that, this should come in full. Yeah, we integrated. So the key sign here is this. This is bigger than this. So doing co-processing means to reduce CO2 as compared to incinerating the waste. This is the main motivation actually. I want to go with this slide first. It shows what is possible. So it's not only here rubber from tires. If it's done correctly, you can go to, I don't know, Tetra Pak, and you can ask Ed actually later what else can be done.
This is only, I could make 3 slides of this, of all the potentials, because there is a lot of material which can be used in the cement kiln, but we need to know what it is. So
yeah,
we need to analyze. That's the main thing.
That's the point. Coming back to this slide is actually, as I'm an economist, I'm interested in what does it pay off? Is it also from an economic point of view interesting? And actually it is. The first prerequisite you will see in the end is that a continuous emission monitoring system is installed. So this is an investment that cement facilities, and also this cement facility has to do, and it has to make sure that it's run properly. Secondly, a feed-in point, an additional feed-in point needs to be installed. And that's very important. You cannot do it with the same feed-in point. The third one is storage. Storage of tire-derived fuels needs to be actually realized. You need a storage space for the tire-derived fuels and the trial burn. And I wanted to show that slide, but I was asked to kick out many slides, so I don't have the slides with the investments here. But I can tell you that in this case, these investments are between 2 and 3 million US dollars, we could say, roughly 2 and 3 million. And then we calculated actually how much money the facility could save every year by substituting 10% of coal by the tire-derived fuels. So that's actually, we go up this curve every year by substituting coal, substituting coal, and after 4 to 6 years, actually all the investments would have been paid off. So we come into kind of a profit phase. However, we only recommend this, and now I come to the very important slide that Ed always points out, if the prerequisites are met, and we are working on it together with EPA Ghana, together with the Bupe cement facility, the compliance with the Basel Stockholm Conventions, and then also the co-processing as waste treatment included a national management legislation and so on. I want to highlight here again an adequate air pollution control device and continuous emission monitoring system, which is really important, and this and also compliance with the regulation and permits that we see in Ghana. Secondly, an error reporting system for employees and penalties for non-compliance is important. And you see, we are here in the outlook, and you see a couple of things that need to be implemented. Yeah, we're working on this. Also, we will not go behind actually the test burn. From our perspective, it is very important that this test burn, once the continuous monitoring system is in place, is done so that we can actually see the emissions. So these are further guidance documents. Some are a bit older, some are quite new, and we're lucky to have the co-author of this one in the room, a colleague of mine now, Daniel. Okay, so thanks for your attention, and yeah, we have the team here, so don't be shy to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tobias. So we have time for questions. Yes, please.
Is there any kind of competition to get the tires in Ghana, other markets where these are being bought, where you have to pay a higher price for it?
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, there is competition for the tires. This is not the only initiative we are doing under the SHRI program on car tires. There are also people who are using the car tires for upcycling, converting the tires into other artifacts like living room furniture, sound systems, etc. And they also require almost the same type of quality of tires. We also have those who are doing pyrolysis with the car tires, extracting oils and black carbon or briquettes in the lead smelting industry. They are also looking for tires with high calorific value and also more rubber. And then you have other companies who are also looking to extracting the rubber, shredding them for the AstroTurf industry. And so all in all, yes, there is competition for the tires, and the SHRI program is keeping an eye on all these different processes that are in the country. Thank you.
Other question? Yeah, please.
Was there a kind of life cycle assessment conducted for this kind of co-processing plant?
There are several life cycle.
You can use microphone.
Okay. Yeah, there are life cycle analysis are done as part of the permit procedure, first of all, and secondly, there are generic ones done, and actually European Union has made several life cycle analysis before the co-incineration guidelines were involved, and it actually looks that using alternative fuels in cement manufacturing actually on 4 of the 5 main global impact environmental impacts is positive compared to incineration or landfill. So, and the ETH here in Switzerland actually has built a model where you can prove what material you put into the kiln, and then it will show you the impact on these 5 global impacts, and then you can show it's beneficial. But life cycle analysis are part of the permitting procedure here as well.
Please.
Yeah, probably to recap, situation 5 or 10 years back, there is a huge abundance of waste car tires in Ghana and many emerging economies. And 5 years back, most car tires were piled up by the roadside and set on fire just to recover the steel, blacking out the whole neighborhood. So the cement plant used 100% of coal to produce cement. And just, down the road, piles of car tires were burned openly without recovering any energy with huge emission profiles. So I think it's beyond life cycle assessment. It's so inefficient, it's so polluting that I think this is a huge opportunity. Reduce coal, making sure emissions are controlled well, and utilize at least part of the car tires to substitute coal. It's still not climate neutral, but it's considering that the unsound management of the majority of car tires, it's a huge step change.
Yeah, and I think you can add that also the iron in the tire is kind of used in the kiln because you need iron. So if you do not add the iron from the tire, you would have to add other iron. So therefore, it's also a kind of recycling of that one. I mean, when we look now to the different uses, so it seems that there are some other uses which are really reuse, and when we would have the waste hierarchy, it would be higher in the waste hierarchy. But on the other hand, when we look to Europe, we have this assessment of the polyaromatic hydrocarbons in the tires, which are quite high. So when you then have really a furniture, yeah, it's really also a question of risk and exposure. Yeah, so that would be my comment. And
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the waste hierarchy, and we know this is like the last resort, last exit Brooklyn, and that's what it needs to be. And people that know me I'm a purist when it comes to the circular economy, and I see how this whole circular economy definition is currently hijacked by developing ISO definitions that try to squeeze in waste to energy as a circular solution. So it worries me. Okay, I understand the implications because there's a problem on the ground, but it opens the door, okay, to really see this as an easy way out. That's number one. That's my concern, because now we see Tetra Pak, plastics, everything. So we don't need any design intentions in future anymore, because it's so easy. We can just put it into a kiln. That is my one concern. And the second one, and I'm glad you put the principles up there, Tobias, is obviously this needs to be really tightly enforced in terms of law enforcement and in terms. And Africa is not exactly known for that. So I'm just saying I don't want to diss it. I think it's part of the solution. But what I'm saying is also it shouldn't be seen as the panacea. And people getting overly enthusiastic on waste to energy always make me creep out. Thank you.
May I make 2 comments on that? First of all, unfortunately, we had 43 slides and we had only 8 minutes, so we had to discuss. The waste hierarchy was part of the original presentation because that's where co-processing is showing, and co-processing is different from waste to energy in the effect that in the waste to energy, you still have 30% of ash, for which you have to find another solution. In the benefit of the cement is that if you analyze the materials correct and you put them in the kiln correctly and you process them correctly in the kiln, then that material, those organics like the iron from the tires will become part of the clinker. And so that is a big difference to waste to energy. And again, I agree.
And that's also in one of the guiding documents is also said. Prevention, reuse, and then we will have recycling and co-processing. And co-processing is part energy recovery and part material recovery.
Okay,
That's
point taken. And we're feeding a linear economy type of industry. That's also a problem that I have.
Yeah, but we still have 40 years of history to solve before we have the new designed materials. So
I do believe in disruption of not functional systems.
okay.
But anyway, we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, response to Susan. There is no closed loop recycling of car tires anywhere in the world. We only have downcycling. AstroTurf is basically what you use as low quality playgrounds. This is the recycling we have. This needs to be managed at a certain point. We just don't have it. BASF is claiming to use pyrolysis oil in plastic manufacturing. There is no proven independent assessment of this so far. So at the moment, at the same time, the world is demanding cement, and cement needs a fuel. What fuel do we take? Coal? Is this a circular economy? So actually for car tires, I fully agree we have to look at the waste hierarchy. And I'm also very skeptical, as I said yesterday, with waste to energy concepts. The second lowest level, but with car tires, I would be happy if someone would prove me a better concept, a closed loop recycling. I have not seen it.
It's an interim solution. Let's agree to that. Can we agree to that?
Okay. Just the last one. Regarding the different competitions for the car tires, that's why this year or early next year, the program is going to organize a forum to bring together all the different actors who are doing something with these car tires, and then that will afford the ministry to now come up with the guidance policies on how these car tires are to be managed. Because in our assessment, we also need to identify the business as usual scenario on what others are doing with the car tires at the moment. And so all the other options are on the table, and I'm sure the ministry is here. They will consider it as we move forward. Thank you. Sorry, we have hijacked car tires, and yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So is there any addition? Yes, please.
It's GADA. You said you started from 1 and then to 19 recycling facilities. What are the factors? What happened?
The fact is that the first recycler was there at the very beginning, and he had an innovative and he wanted to do the recycling business. However, before she started over there were no, for instance, what is former recycler? Former recycler before was just a registry, and he has a business in Egypt, a business registration that he has a business. But after Shri, there was a whole different system from beginning with a former recycler has to be accredited from the Ministry of Environment. He has to have the environmental impact assessment. He has to. We had an auditing system, so the auditing system or the inspection would visit those recyclers. I mean, we created a whole industry, a whole ecosystem of e-waste management. So, and as I said in my presentation, we incentivized the informal to become formal through limiting the governmental equipment tendering to just formal accredited recyclers. And at the same time, we tried to integrate the informal by whether incubation, by giving them incentives to become formal through so many other incentives that I mean, I'd have a whole list to tell you about. But the fact is that there's an industry, there's rules and regulations, there's an inspection system, there are technical, I mean, the waste management law that came up with its executive regulations and defining e-waste as a hazardous with special conditions made it a lot easier for the former recyclers to reduce their cost. So, I mean, all these factors played, they were a huge incentive for the informal to start seeing the value of being a formal. And on the other hand, the limitations that were as an incentive for the formal recyclers, it kind of played in parallel together to increase the number of and let them see the opportunity and the income generating industry that they could become part of. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, further questions? Yep, please.
I have a question, just a bit of a throwback to Ed Verhammer. Just from the perspective of a cement manufacturer, how easy is it to switch between tires or any kind of waste as replacement fuel? Does it require new equipment, technology, or simply a change of settings?
Yeah, it needs new equipment because you need to feed it separate from the coal or the oil or the gas, and it also needs it's basically the same. Changing from coal to gas would also need training of the control room operators and also the maintenance people, etc. So that's also part of the whole prerequisites Tobias was showing. It is it's a learning curve you have to go through, but I've been working in almost all over the world in cement plants, and every cement plant, once motivated to do it, because that's another issue on it, is able to do it. And if they don't know how to do it themselves, there are enough operators around to support you in setting this up. But it's not like clicking the electricity on it. It's a much more complicated issue.
So very last question.
Yeah, in the Ghana context, does the cement producer expect to be paid to take the tires, or does he take them for free or charge a gate fee? And I guess also the other question would be, there's also this huge problem of people just burning plastics everywhere in the city. This could potentially also be an interesting RDF source eventually. Are there interest in there? Is there discussion in there? Obviously, it's not what Susan would like, but
Can I answer it? Yeah. For the at this moment, of course, as there is competition, there is a market, but at this moment, the model Tobias showed gives that he will take it for free, and he might even pay something for it. On the RDF part, that's a second chapter in this book. And as we have not finished the first chapter, let's finish the first chapter and then go to the second one. But yeah, the RDF, if you look into Germany, for instance, 90% of the coal in German cement plants is replaced by RDF or SRF material, or as the Germans call it, fluff, which is basically made of selected municipal solid waste and commercial waste.
Okay, good. So we come to an end. I think we give a big hand to the 7 presenters. And